Okay. I don't want to take time to the others, so we have 15 minutes. Sentite? Sentite? Perfect. My presentation is on America First and the consequence on the United Nations. So I had to be with populism here because, well, I work at the United Nations as a journalist. I'm not part of the United Nations. I cover the United Nations. And one of the things that we were all expecting our journalists to say, okay, what's going to happen with Trump at the United Nations? I mean, it's going to be this big change like we had with everything else. That's my opinion, of course. No, really. Why? Because at the United Nations, America First has been there all the time. I mean, it's not like because Trump is president and we have a different policy. We have maybe a different tone, that could be different kind of wording, but the substance of policy of the United States is has been always the same, I think. At least, well, it's not like you can say that in 100 days you can completely understand the policy of the United States throughout the United Nations, but I would say that it looks like started, put it this way, it started the same way it started with Obama, especially with the second mandate of President Obama when he sent as ambassador Samantha Power. Okay? Okay, so what you see that is she is Nikki Haley. So, Haley is the former South Carolina governor. Somebody on the beginning was talking that she could have become Secretary of State. Nobody really believed that, at least in journalists, we didn't believe it because she was actually, during the campaign, she was a kind of enemy of Trump because she had supported other candidates. But she all of a sudden goes back in the picture. Again, she was not a supporter of Trump in the beginning. And as she landed this job, United States ambassador, that is the head of, officially it's called the head of the mission of the United States, the United Nations. That remind you, you probably know, but it's very important because differently from all the other ambassadors, the UN ambassador is a cabinet position. He sits with the government, so he's a different status than other ambassadors around the world. Before actually the foreign relations video, if you can show the other one, the one that is this one. Yes, this one. Now here, when she starts the video, this is the first time she appears in front of the press. She will, I will say, she will not take questions. Usually, you appear in front of the press that take questions, but she says she does a statement, and we will listen all the statements she will do. This was her first appearance at the United Nations after she came. Volume.
We start off the day is great. It's a thrill to be here at the UN. I will tell you that we have hit the ground running. There is a new U.S. UN. We talked to the staff yesterday, and you are going to see a change in the way we do business. It's no longer about working harder, it's about working smarter. And we have a fantastic team at the U.S. UN that's ready to prove that. Our goal with the administration is to show value at the UN. And the way that we'll show value is to show our strength, show our voice, have the backs of our allies, and make sure that our allies have our back as well. For those that don't have our back, we're taking names. We will make points to respond to that accordingly. But this is a time of strength. This is a time of action. This is a time of getting things done. And this administration is prepared and ready to go in, to have me go in, look at the UN, and everything that's working, we're going to make it better. Everything that's not working, we're gonna try and fix, and anything that seems to be obsolete and not necessary, we're gonna do away with. But this is a time of fresh eyes, new strength, new vision, and a great day at the US-UN. Thank you very much.
As she lives, I mean, we were shocked when she just left because, you know, usually the first time you appear, you take some question, I guess. She did, she left. That reaction on the press list was a kind of a shock because she said, the firm said, we will take names. We will take names. It's not a diplomatic way to talk, right? We will take names. And so everybody started to trying to figure out what does she really mean. I mean, what she was saying, take names of the enemies, the people. Then she explained better, and actually was a direct threat, if you want, to allies. No, so she was not talking in that case about Russia, China. She was talking about who was sitting at the Security Council. In this case, she was talking about, well, Great Britain, but Great Britain usually gets along with the United States. But she was talking exactly about France, and in this case, she will be talking also about Italy. Italy is starting to see since January. What she was saying is, don't play games with me, with the United States. If you are telling me that you agree on certain line of foreign policy, if we are all here together, then when we are at the Security Council, behave. That's what she was saying. And we saw the result of that right away, for example, with the bombing of Syria a few weeks ago, how, for example, France, well, again, Great Britain was predicted about how way France and Italy reacted. Because in the case of, I just tell about Italy because I to cover it, especially Italy, there has been a tradition at the United Nations, a tradition that nothing can happen, should happen in the world without respecting the Charter, without respecting the rules, the international law. So everything has to go through the international law. In this case, you cannot, you know, unilaterally bomb a country without having first the Security Council, or at least try to go through the Security Council with a resolution. In this case, the missiles were sent to Syria before any resolution was presented. So no waiting at all, even if of course the chances that, like it happened, that Russia will veto it, but they sent the missiles before. Italy, the day after, in the speech, Ambassador Cardi agreed with the United States and say, yes, it was well done. This was, I think, that's my opinion, and direct response to this, we will take names. But there is another aspect that I'm going to show you, again, to do fast, if we can go to the other. When she intervened at the at the Council of Foreign Relations, this was just about 25 days ago, and just before she started the presidency of the Security Council, you know, the rotation that there is every month change. In the month of April, United States was in charge of, as a president of the Security Council, and she says certain things that it's important. You have this, you can start if you have
the Secretary General to have it withdrawn. The head of the UN agency then resigned. I think this incident really goes to the heart of what needs to be changed at the United Nations. So many dollars and man-hours were spent to produce a false and defamatory report. So much energy and emotion is spent on the same old things. Meanwhile, the UN is missing the growing discontent and growing distrust among the people it's supposed to represent. The fact is, a wave is building throughout the world. It's a wave of populism that is challenging institutions like the United Nations and shaking them to their foundations. So many people are desperate. So many face injustice, genocide, starvation, and corruption, and they feel powerless. So many people yearn just to be heard.
we can go to the other section.
were overlooked and unfulfilled. Like all governing bodies, the United Nations has to contend with this growing wave of discontent. I came to the UN with the goal of showing the American people value for our investment in this institution. And when I say value, I'm not primarily talking about budgets. I'm talking about making the UN an effective tool on behalf of our values. The United States is the moral conscience of the world. We will not walk away from this role, but we will insist that our participation in the UN honor and reflect this role. If we can't speak on behalf of people like Mohammed and Nada, then we have no business being here. For me, human rights are at the heart of the mission of the United Nations. That's why I'll be devoting a portion of my presidency to putting the issue of human rights on the agenda at the Security Council. It might surprise many Americans to learn that human rights violations have not been considered an appropriate subject for discussion in the Security Council.
We can go on the other side. I tried to find all the part that I think are connected with populism in our speech at the Council for
More
and this is the last one.
dependent and helpless environment. This is a moment of great responsibility for those who believe in peace and security through international cooperation. Countries all over the world are turning inward. People are questioning the value of interactions with other nations and with international institutions. Some of those questions are good ones and are long overdue. But there is also a danger. Hanging in the balance is the very relevance of the United Nations. This is a time, in short, to show the people reasons to support the UN. Even in these cynical times, I believe we all carry in our hearts a bit of idealism that inspired the creation of the United Nations. I know we all want those ideals to succeed in the world. I know I do. I have promised the American people to continue the United States' indispensable role as the moral conscience of the world. Today, I pledge to my colleagues on the Security Council that I will work with them to make the UN an effective instrument of peace, security, and human rights of all people. I hope they will join me in doing what's right, both for the United Nations and for the people we are pledged to protect.
Okay, we stop there. Now, the reason why I show you this is because my interpretation, also from the famous Twitter, I'm not showing to you because I assume you heard about it. There was a famous Twitter done by President Trump. He wasn't yet president, he was president elected. And he said, I can read it to you, he said, it's just, about the United Nations. That's the only tweet he did about the United Nations. Sorry. I must have. Probably would have been better if I gave it to you, but Google it very easy. But I read it to you. The United Nations has such great potential, but right now it is just a club for people to get together, talk, and have a good time. So sad. Now, the reaction to this at the United Nations, the reaction to that Twitter was, oh my God, he's going to destroy the United Nations, right? He's not going to give it. My reaction, and some other journalists with a little bit of experience at UN, I mean, I'm seeing a lot of US administration coming, actually was a positive one. I mean, you heard me talking about Trump, the speech, inauguration speech was fascist or something. But I have to tell you, the Trump reaction to the United Nations and her so far has been much better than Obama's. And I will explain you why. Because in the Twitter he says, the United Nations has such a great potential. But right now, it's just a club for people to get together. Usually, the story is different. The story is that for United States, the way that 1945 was, was created in the United Nations by the United States, by the way, all the winners of the Second World War in San Francisco, was that that system got old. Means it doesn't work anymore. So we had to do by ourselves. We had to go around the United Nations. You don't believe me? We go to, no, it's not that you don't believe me, but to talk about Trump that has a reaction about the United Nations that is better than the one of Obama, no? You can be a little bit perplexed. But now I show you her. This is Samantha Power. The first day, first time she talked to the press. Like you heard, first time, Nikki Haley talking to the press. Now we hear her talking to the press. I had some problem to catch that, you know, because we don't have time to see all the 11 minutes. So we watch this, and then if you know, the one I told you, and then when I stop it, I will give you another minute. Okay. Go ahead.
Times like this, the Security Council should live up to its obligations and should act. That is why, for 2.5 years, we have brought press statements, presidential statements, resolutions, and a whole host of Syria-related concerns to the UN Security Council, each time hoping that our common security and our common humanity might prevail. Each time making the case that countries on the Council should be motivated by our shared interest in international peace and security, in protecting civilians, but also in preventing extremism, regional spillover, and chemical weapons use. Unfortunately, for the past 2.5 years, the system devised in 1945 precisely to deal with threats of this nature did not work as it was supposed to. It has not protected peace and security for the hundreds of Syrian children who were gassed to death on August 21. It is not protecting the stability of the region. It is not standing behind now an internationally accepted ban on the use of chemical weapons. Instead, the system has protected the prerogatives of Russia, the patron of a regime that would brazenly stage the world's largest chemical weapons attack in a quarter century, while chemical weapons inspectors sent by the United Nations were just across town. And even in the wake of the flagrant shattering of the international norm against chemical weapons use, Russia continues to hold the Council hostage and shirk its international responsibilities, including as a party to the Chemical Weapons Convention. What we have learned, what the Syrian people have learned, is that the Security Council the world needs to deal with this crisis is not the Security Council we have. Nonetheless, as the Secretary General himself has stressed, chemical weapons must not become a tool of war or terror in the 21st century.
You know, eight minutes, 31 seconds, 8:31, and then we stop at 9.
Council was created back in 1945, and there have been occasions, and this is something President Obama made reference to yesterday, in the life of the Security Council, in the history of the Security Council, where paralysis has prevented the Council from fulfilling its role. In this case, with regard to this mass casualty chemical weapons use and the risk of further use, the risk, as the Secretary General said, of this becoming a weapon of war, to stand back would be to endanger not only international peace and security, not only U.S. national security, but we also believe the very international system that we have been working these decades to build. And on occasions, as we had with Kosovo, as we would have had perhaps in the case of Rwanda, had different proposals been presented, and in this case, we cannot allow the patron of a party to the conflict, the patron of the actor that itself violated this international norm, to act with impunity simply because it has that patronage on the Security Council. That in no way reflects the spirit of the UN Charter or the intentions of the founders or the intentions of any of us who come to work every day with the hope of promoting and enforcing international peace and security.
We can stop it. Okay, the day after I headlined my, I don't know if you can see here, my headline and my editorial about it, the United States torpedo the Security Council, Siluga, torpedo, and this is a quote from her. What the world needs now is not what we have. What the world needs is not what we have now in regards to the Security Council. Now, why I'm telling you this is because the different approach is this. Nikki Haley comes in, backed by the Trump's tweet, where Trump said the United Nations has a lot of potential. Not now, but has potential. And then Nikki Haley say, follow me, follow us, and we're going to find, to get those potential. We're going to work with the United Nations. We're going to work with the Security Council because you're going to behave because I take names. But we are going to use the Security Council. Obama said, I don't care about the Security Council, it's old. I'm going to resolve problem going around. It's old. That's what she said. When she said that was when Obama was with Putin at a G8, or G20 actually, a meeting in St. Petersburg. When she said that, she was practically, Obama, through her, was threatening Putin, saying, we're going to bomb Syria now. And we don't care if you veto or don't veto, because now, you know why? We are not going to even present a Security Council resolution. Why? Because it's dated. This institution don't work anymore. That was 24 hours after the speech, 24 hours. That was when Putin called back Obama, sit down with 2 chairs, there are pictures, and told Putin, told Obama, I have an idea. Also where the ships were going, the US ships were going towards Syria, and Congress, careful here, had not given to Obama permission yet to bomb. He wanted the backup of Congress, but Congress yet was stalling. What does it mean? Do we have to believe that was just what they were saying was just a way to threaten the Russians and say this Security Council, where you're still very powerful, is obsolete, and we are not going to work with it anymore, and we show you, but was just, like you say, bluff, like poker game, because they wanted Putin to find a solution that was about how to Assad to give up all these chemical weapons. Was that, or was instead a doctrine, what I call the Obama Powers Doctrine? Do you know who is Samantha Power, by the way? I mean, before she became ambassador. She was, first of all, beginning, she was a journalist like me. They handed to be in the former Yugoslavia, covering the former Yugoslavia tragedy. Then she became a professor at Harvard University. And she wrote a famous book that won a Pulitzer Prize. The book was about, and maybe you heard this, responsibility to protect. Means United States has a responsibility to protect human beings in danger, no matter where they are, people, thousands of people, to prevent genocide. No, and give up or not even try to go through the Security Council. I mean, if the Security Council accept, or the United Nations, I mean, is with us, fine. But if it's not, we don't care.
OBC policy.
Well, but this was a breakthrough, because you have to understand that when you remember Bush, right? Bush tried hard to go through the Security Council before invading Iraq. Even put power to do all the game with the pictures and things. But there was Chirac, France, that was stopping, right? That's why we will take names in the case later on, because usually our allies that stop you. Because Russia, in that case, Russia didn't stop us, United States and NATO, to bomb Libya, for example. You want a point in this, of course, because you say, okay, very interesting thing. What's the point here? The point is that in the case of populism that we are talking here, well, I am convinced, and this is not only about the United Nations, I'm convinced in general that populism could be a good force when it just starts and shake up Spain. In this case, if we want to say that the Trump administration is a populist force toward the United Nations, he's coming and he's shaking something up because he's saying, we have to work better. You have a lot of potential, but you are not doing what, things are the way it should be done. There is an approach that I kind of think that could work in a short time. It's already working. I mean, we see that certain things at UN, especially at the Security Council, are working differently a little bit. Of course, then there must be a solution. There must be agreements with their country. You cannot just threaten them. You cannot find solution on this. But in the case of the Obama administration, at least toward the United Nations, there was a solution that was either you agree with me or I just don't need you. I don't need the rules of the United Nations, of international law. When this guy, Trump, bombed Syria without having no even a veto at the Security Council, he did have it, but later on. I mean, the resolution was presented after the missiles exploded in Syria. He didn't do something that he imposed it or created or say like, hey, I'm Trump, I'm doing this way. He just did what Samantha Power and Obama had told a few years before. He just applied not his doctrine, but the Obama's power doctrine. So in the case of the United Nations, I think that America first is something that always been there, but it got worse, not with Trump, with Obama, and with Bush before, of course, also with Bush. And with Trump, in 100 days, like in everything, with his policy with China, with his policy, he still have to hope that in this kind of no clear position because he changed idea every day, maybe he sticks to his Twitter. The United Nations has a lot of potential. Thank you.